No, when I was starting to lead, or well, we call it Bible. This is the Bible talk in general, but when I was in the campus ministry, I was very zealous about doing end of days lessons. And there was one time in Manila where it was flooded outside, and so I did a lesson on Noah, and I think I did a good job on scaring those campus students about whether or not, if this rain is not going to stop, you better get your life right, study the Bible, and I think there was about 15 people there, 10 people studied the Bible because I scared them about judgment. I don't know what their life is like. But a lot of times when people read Revelation, they get that feeling. They get, oh, this is such a warning and a downer, and but we have to remember who the audience is for John. I mean, and what the political situation was, what the economical situation was, what was going on in their lives, what was happening to John. John was believed to be exiled in Patmos. Uh, Economically and financially, Christians, and physically, Christians were either being persecuted by discrimination, or they were being discriminated just by simply because they refused to acknowledge that Caesar is God. And because they refused to acknowledge Caesar was God, they were not actually given, or they were not allowed to trade, to buy things. There were some people would be exiled, and find refuge outside of the city, because and whoever and the Roman rule was so vast. It's that every place there was actually an outpost, or and there was a decree that you have to declare that Caesar is Lord, and Christians refused to do that. So they either had to do businesses among themselves, to and that's what even branded them as a cult, because here they are, about to starve, or about to, they're losing money, they're losing their business, and the only way that they can survive is by the church being strong together, to build that, to work on that community. um, and this gave them the reputation of actually being a cult. So we're gonna look at certain things to what John was trying to get at. We will see languages that is similar to what Daniel has been using, or what Daniel used. And there are symbolisms to all this, but it's not symbolism like it's secret symbolism. Okay, but I think it's symbolism that because everybody knows the references in the Old Testament. Numerology was nothing new during this time. They would actually use these numbers, um, that it was very common. It's almost like when we say 911, even though it's not, say, a Filipino or an Indonesian number, we know 911 is like a code for emergency. Because it was made popular in TV shows, it became part of the lingo, right? So a lot of the numbers you see here is actually numbers that, people have associated certain things. Okay, so going back to that, as we start in Revelations 13, uh, we just, uh, hold on, let me close this. Close. Okay, so we start in Revelations 12 first. Just a recap of what we read about the woman and the dragon. Okay, in there's therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury, because he know his time is short. So here is, like what John was explaining, that there's a war happening. There's a war that's going to happen, and we are all caught in that crossfire. And we are the reward, and we are the reason for this war. Okay. Um, and when the dragon saw that he had been hurled to the earth, he pursued the woman who gave birth to the male child. The woman was given the two wings of a great eagle, so that she might fly to the place prepared for her in the wilderness, where she would be taken care for a time, times, and half a time out of the serpent's reach. So a lot of speculations wonder who this mother is, or who this woman is. People are saying it's Israel because out of Jesus came gave birth to this male child. They're of course assuming that this male child is Jesus, rightfully so because of its great importance. Um, but and there could not be the. I mean, there's speculation that it is Israel, but most other scholars have actually said that these are, uh, the woman who had given birth to the male child were actually the people of God, and it didn't really uh, exclusively just be Israel. It's just people who people who followed God. Of course, Jews would Jewish believers would say that this is Israel. This, it's all for speculation. But the thing is, what's clear here is that the dragon is hurled down to the earth. He's gonna create chaos, and those who belong to God will be protected or be prepared in the wilderness. Not meaning that it's gonna be comfortable for them, but there is a place where they're gonna be together, and that's how they're protected. Okay, and when we say times and times and half a time, which is borrowed from Daniel, it is a phrase of being temporary, and it's not permanent. Okay, the dragon will cause chaos, but it will be only for a temporary period of time. Okay, so um, verse 15, then from his mouth the serpent spewed water like a river to overtake the woman and sweep her away with a torrent. The earth helped the woman by opening its mouth and swallowing the river that the dragon had spewed out of its mouth. Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring, which is people believed to be the church or people who follow God, those who keeps God's commandments and hold fast to their testimony about Jesus. That kind of explains it. Okay, so if you look at this scenario where the dragon spewed, but the earth opened and saved the woman, imagery of this comes to back to Exodus, where there was water, and the earth opened, and they crossed, and then the people of God was saved. Okay, so this imagery is in that same context where there will be persecution that's happening, but God Himself will work things out in terms of how to save those from being persecuted. So we start off in Revelations 13. Okay, so this is the an image that people get confused about, because there are things that John borrowed from Daniel, but there are also some parts here that is common to what people understand during that time. Okay, so in verse 1, and I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, and with 10 diadems on its horns and blasphemous names on its head. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to it the dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority. One of its heads seems to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?" Okay. So there's a dragon, okay, that was hurled down, and I saw a beast rising out of the sea. So the beast and the dragon are two different things. Okay, there's a beast that rises from the sea, and what are okay? Well, let's continue in verse 5. Now we'll try to explain it. And the beast was given mouth, uttering haughty and blasphemous words, and it was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months, which is time and half a time, okay, which is 3.5 years. It opened its mouth to utter blasphemies against God, blaspheming his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Also, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. And authority was given it over every tribe and people and language and nation. All those who dwell on the earth will worship it. Everyone whose name has not been written before the foundation of the world of life. Oh, sorry. Uh, this is okay. There we go. The book of life of the Lamb who was slain. Okay, so going back to this, the forces that the beast or the devil uses to fight against God. Okay, when you see the sea, it's considered the unstable powers of the world. The earth is the governing powers and false religion. And later on in chapter 17, we talk about the great harlot, which is the seducing power of Rome, worldliness. Okay, so this is what the beast from the sea looks like. Okay, so something similar to what, not similar, but it's almost in the same line of how Daniel's vision was, with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems and its horns and blasphemous names. So in Isaiah 17, going back to the sea, to the analogy of the sea or to the use of the sea, it's the unstable powers of the world, which means politics or rulers that would come. In Isaiah 17 and many other verses would compare this, like, woe to the many nations that rage, they rage like a raging sea. Woe to the peoples who roar, they roar like the roaring of great waters. So anything that had anything to do with sea and nations and conquering, uh, it's depicted as something that is unstable, something that will always change. And the sea is uh, when you say it's paired up with that image. Okay. In Revelations 12 verse 12, going back to that scripture that we originally read in the beginning. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them. Okay. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and those who dwell in them. But woe to the earth and the sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury. Right. So now we look at the beast. It says 10 horns and 7 heads with 10 diadems. So horns is a symbol of power. The horn of Israel, the horn of Judah. It is a symbol, or it's what people use to symbolize power. 10 is a number for completeness. Like 10 fingers, or you know, it's something that people used to count with. They count in numbers of 10. Um, if you look even at the Roman numeral, uh, you have all this, well, one, two, three, and four and five, and even the number 10 seems to culminate, like, if what you call this, the symbol in itself or the number itself was considered a unit. All right, so it was a number of completeness. When one unit is complete, they set it aside by tens. Okay. 7 was also a number for perfection, or represent perfection, spiritual and physical. Spiritual is, the 3 is considered a spiritual identification, and also used to represent the rest of the outside world. As far as Jewish people were concerned, in Deuteronomy 7 to 12, before the Israelites would take the promised land, there were 7 nations that were there that had to be exiled, from the Jebusites, Perizzites, Hittites, Amalekites. I forgot what the other Ekites were, right? But uh, this and from their point on, and the any nation or every nation outside of Israel had the number 7. So this could either be a spiritual perfection of a number of represents perfection, or a number that represents other nations outside of Israel. Okay, so there are two possible things. Diadems, victor crowns, victory by overcoming. Okay, and names of blasphemy are those who are claiming to be God. Okay, blasphemous names on its head. They would proclaim, and the one who's the most guilty of this is Caesar, who forces people to profess that he is God. Okay, and the beast that I saw was like a leopard, its feet like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. Okay, uh, so it was like a leopard. So the body had like a leopard. Its mouth was like a lion's mouth. So leopard was known, even in this world, for its swiftness. They know that if they're that no predator can outrun the leopard. Okay, the bear is known for its strength, and lion is known for its dominion, rule, like top of the food chain, and okay. Then again, all these are top predators, whether it's bear, or leopard, or but the lion is known, or has that symbolism of dominion and rule. Okay, so what he's trying to say is when this beast from the sea comes out, right? Um, when the beast of the sea comes out, it will come with complete authority. It is of the world. It is of a political power. All right. It's gonna be quick. They're gonna be strong as far as army wise, and they will rule with authority. Okay, so this is what John was trying to get at as far as the symbols were concerned. This beast that comes out of the sea, that represents the dragon. Okay, because what this beast is trying to do is the image of the dragon. All right. Uh, so one of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound, and its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled, and they worshipped the dragon for he had given his authority to the beast. They worship the dragon because he has given his authority to the beast. Okay, so if you look at this, the fatal wound that John is talking about here could have been because because it's still Caesar. And remember, the way Daniel works his prophecy is that he talks about what is known first, right? What is known, or what's going to happen. Like when he talked about Nero, the golden head. I mean, Nero, Nebuchadnezzar talks about the golden head. Nebuchadnezzar identified with this person, right? So here, John is using the same pattern. He's talking about, okay, what there was this wound on its head was a mortal wound. People identified that Nero died, and Nero was the mad king, right? But his wound was healed, and right after his rule, not right after, but during this turmoil, Domitian kind of brought order back into the Roman rule, Roman what you call this, into the Roman back to the Roman glory, right? So, going back to this, the beast was allowed to exercise authority for 42 months. 42 months, not literal, but temporary. Okay, it was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them. Right. So this was in some ways when the beast came, he was set. His heart was set on just conquering what is not of God's kingdom, but also to make those of God's kingdom compromise. Authority was given to it over every tribe and people, language, and nation. So people identify this actually with the Roman kingdom. Okay, everyone whose names has not been written before the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who was slain. All right. So going back to the previous verse that we read, this is the quality or what the first beast was going to do. That it was going to be uh, um a force of authority. People will know, and it's going to spread all over. Okay, it's going to be everywhere. Okay, so here comes the second prophecy or the second beast. Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had two horns. Okay, rising out of the earth, it means it's something that's already established, right? It's something that's already there. It had two horns like a lamb and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast whose mortal wound was healed. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven in front of people. But by the signs that it allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast might speak and might cause those who would not worship the beast and the image of the beast to be slain. For it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand on the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. That is the name of the beast of its name, or the number of its name. This number for wisdom, and this calls for wisdom. Let the one who understands calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. This launched a lot of horror movies. That this is the devil incarnate. He has a tattoo 666, and people take this literally that there is a mark for 666. Okay, but this is what the Isaiah 13 verse is actually all about. It talks about the first beast, then it talks about the second beast. Okay, um, so breaking this down, okay, to be marked on the right hand on the forehead so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. Okay, so going back to this, the dragon, the sea beast, and the earth beast. Okay, so if you look at it, the dragon, the sea beast, and this is the trinity of evil, right? And it says looks like a lamb but talks like a dragon, a being of deceit and persuasion, something that you don't expect to be conquering you, but it actually is. So people have put this in this image to be that of Greece and their culture, because Roman when Roman conquered the world, when Rome conquered the world, it was under Pax Romana, which means they didn't really. It was more of like, listen, if you bow down now, we're gonna give you peace, but you're gonna rule under us, right? But you can keep your religion, you can keep your philosophy, and you can keep all this. So Greek culture flourished within the Roman Empire, more so because Rome was widespread, right? So when Greeks came into the picture, their conquering or method of conquering was through persuasion, through debates, through all this. So they would still allow you or point you to follow the authority of Rome, but they would still teach their own philosophy to people. Okay, that's why we have a lot of Greek influences in everything, in almost everything that we do, right? So the idea, the phrase "fire from heaven" is a sign of God's approval, like in Second Kings or verse 18, or chapter 18, or in verse 1. where Elijah was asking God to come down and consume people with fire. In Exodus, people were being led by fire and by smoke. So fire has always been a sign of God's approval. But this lamb is able to do miracles that seem like it's under God's approval. Okay, so it counterfeits the power of God. So how do you see this today? You see anybody out there who's a great preacher, and it says, okay, then you have to understand eloquence of something does not equal the truth, right? So there always has to be the people of God, or the people who follow God need to be vigilant about what people are preaching about. Okay, this calls for wisdom. Okay, this is the controversial part. Okay, the number 666, the mark of the if you remember in chapter 6, the mark of the beast. Okay, from the third seal there will be a mark of the beast. It says the right hand is a symbol for being able to work or trade. Okay, forehead is a symbol of thought, of who you are, your personality, your image. Sorry, your uh, not personality, your identity. Right? It's in your forehead. It's a symbol of identity. 666. Okay, the number 666. 777 is of divine perfection. The number 3 and the number 7 put together. 666 is basically just short of divine perfection. It's falling short of what God wants. So anybody who claims to be divine perfection, this man falls short because he is not divine. He is not of God. Okay. So anyone who claims to be God, it says that let this calls for wisdom. Let the one who understands calculate the number of the beast. So what John is saying is anybody out there who's proclaiming to be God, Caesar in particular at this point, you know he's not God. So what John is trying to say is that this man falls short of who God is. And you're worshiping somebody who's not God, but has fallen short of God. Right? So that's just basically it. It's not this weird number or weird tattoo that this is the sign of evil. This is just a proclamation of anybody who proclaims to be God. And we have to be careful, because to this day and age, it's not the Caesar. It's anybody or anything that we put in front of God, right? That becomes the mark of the beast. If you are paralyzed, say with and I heard this in CG last week. I tried to read the Bible, but I can't because I have too much work. Oh, I have to do this, and there's a lot of excuses that come, right? Because they are putting things ahead of their relationship with God, ahead of just even their prayer life, and they feel like whenever people tell them to pray, they feel like they're forced to pray, so they don't pray. So that kind of goes in an avalanche of things. But in here, in that same way, in that same place, it's more like John is saying anything that you put ahead of God is that beast. Okay, because any day when it says it's the number of a man, it's the number of something temporary. It's not God. Okay, so that's just basically what it is. Okay, it's not some weird antichrist, even though there are those. I mean, for a long time, Henry Kissinger was. Then it was Hitler, or before that was Hitler. Before that was. Is this anybody who claims to be that they're more than what they are? Okay. So is that clear for Revelation 13 before we go to Revelation 14? So the beast that John talks about, it's not to his audience. and this is probably in line with the preterism. So his audience, this is something that they know that it's already there. Okay. Um, but like in true fashion for most of prophecies that we know, like in the book of Daniel, the book of Zechariah, there are prophecies that are not exact, which means there are prophecies that are acted and reenacted in several parts of history. So even to this day, if you look at it, well, what's the equivalence of Rome? What's the equivalence of Greece in our life? Okay, so moving to that, and we look at Revelations 14. Then I looked, and behold, the Mount Zion. On Mount Zion stood the Lamb. He talked about the beast, the dragon, the beast of the earth, the beast of the sea, the beast of the earth. Revelations 14 talks about the other side of that war, which is now talking about the Lamb. Okay, on Mount Zion stood the Lamb, and with him 144,000 who had his name and his father's name written on their forehead. Then I heard from heaven like a roar of many waters, like the sound of loud thunder. The voice I heard was like the sound of harpists playing on their harp, and they were singing a new song before the throne and before the four living creatures and before the elders. No one could ever learn that. No one could learn the song except the 144,000 who had been redeemed from the earth. It is not. It is these who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. It is those who follow the Lamb wherever he goes, and these have been redeemed from mankind as first fruits of for God and the Lamb. And in their mouths no lie was found, for they are blameless. Okay, so going back to the 144,000, you break it down, it's 12 times 12 times 1,000. Okay, the people of God in all its complete, from the 12 tribes of Israel to the 12 apostles. So it's the old and new covenant, and 1,000 is basically your number of complete, 10 times 10 times 10, right? So it's divine completeness. Virgin is spiritual purity. When you look at this verse, it is those who have not defiled themselves with women, for they are virgins. It's not like every married man is gonna go to hell, or anybody who's ever, or every married couple is gonna go to hell because they become virgins. These are spiritual purity. Okay, and when you say those who have not defiled themselves, women, this imagery takes you back to Genesis, in which the angels went down and defiled themselves with women. Right? They saw that the women were good, so they defiled themselves, and the women gave birth to abominations like the Nephilim. Right? So this imagery goes back to it that they've not been tempted, not been tempted with something that attracts them in all this. Okay, and it follows up with, it is those who follow the Lamb where he goes. Now, those who have been obedient to Jesus, these are the ones that are uh, that belong to the 144,000. They're not literally 144,000 numbers, but it's those, whether you're a Jewish believer or a Gentile believer. But it kind of concludes that the people who belong to God are the people who listen or obey what Jesus said. Okay, I'm not gonna go through the whole chapter 14, but I'm gonna put it in bullet points what it is. Then I saw another angel. Okay, so there in here, I looked and behold on Mount Zion and his name, right? So it's talking about the people that stood before the Lamb, or the 144,000. Okay, and then I saw another angel flying directly overhead with an eternal gospel. Another angel, a second, following, saying, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great." Babylon is just a word for anybody who thinks that they've conquered. She who made all nations drink the wine of the passion for sexual immorality. Another angel, a third, followed them, saying with a loud voice, if anyone worships the beast and its image and receives a mark on his forehead or on his hand, he will drink the wine of God's wrath, poured full strength into the cup of his anger. Okay, so you see the forces that God is working. Um, so he's saying here the first angel came. It's the eternal gospel, which means anybody and everybody has a chance to talk to listen to what the gospel is, and the gospel is good news. It's evangelion, right? It's a good news that's been done for you. So that's why word spread. The more people hear about Jesus, the faster the word of God spread. And the second angel follows a warning. Listen, Babylon the Great, whoever calls themselves great, she who made all nations. So fallen is Babylon the Great. So it's making a prophecy that the Babylon has fallen. Rome is gonna fall. Anybody who claims to be great drinks the wine and passion of her sexual immorality, and then anyone who worships the beast, they will face God's wrath. Okay, and this is not just a warning to those who actually did it, for Gentiles who didn't hear about God, but also especially the Christians who turned their back on the gospel. Here's a call for endurance of the saints, those who keep the commandments. Okay, and then later on in another verse, seated on the cloud, one like the Son of Man, with a golden crown on his head, and a sharp sickle in his hand. So in this verse, it talks about, listen, here's Jesus. He has a victor's crown on his head, the real golden crown, the real victor. He had a sharp sickle in his hand. Sharp sickle is a symbol for judgment. And another angel came out of the temple, calling with a loud voice to him who sat on the cloud. An angel was talking to Jesus. Put in your sickle and reap, for the hour to reap has come. The harvest of the earth is fully ripe. Another angel came out of the temple in heaven, and he too had a sharp sickle. And another angel came out of the altar, the angel who has authority over the fire, and he called with a loud voice, and the one who had the sharp sickle, authority over the fire, which means he had the authority of God. Okay, with a loud voice and a sharp sickle, put in your sickle and gather the clusters of the vine and the earth, for its grapes are ripe. Okay, so he gathered, they put the sickle, and the winepress was sprouted outside the city. Blood flowed from the winepress as high as the horse's bridle for 1,600 stadia or stadiums. Okay, so this is an intense image when you look at it. It's an image of judgment. It's an image of what's to come. But it did not come out of nowhere. It came from the ruler, or the description of the tree, the dragon, the sea beast, and the earth beast, right? It's coming from that perspective. Now, it's saying, listen, people will have an obvious choice on who to follow. To them, they will either be convinced that Jesus is Lord or he is not. They will either be convinced that Caesar is better, and then follow and take the mark of the beast, which means they will get a certificate, or whoever, they get a stamp or a tattoo or a branding, that says that person identified that Caesar is Lord. Okay, his identity is not with Jesus or not with Yahweh, but it's with Caesar. His alliance is with Caesar. So that imagery, or that storyline, or that sequence, comes Revelations 14, says, listen, judgment is coming. And this is what we got to worry about. This is one thing we have to know, that this is the prophecy that John is saying. Whether we like it or not, judgment is going to come. Whether it comes in our lifetime or it comes in the lifetime of our descendants, it will come, and we will be judged more strictly, because we have made a claim we have bowed the knee. We have bent the knee and bowed down to Christ. Okay. So the first angel, this is just in summary. I didn't really have time to go through all this imagery and all this, but the first angel, everyone can hear the gospel. The second angel proclaims judgment on the wicked. The third angel warns those who compromise and worship the beast. And the voice of the triumph is the voice of the faithful. So, in sequence to the whole Revelations 13 to 14, it's a description of what this war is going to be about. It's going to be about us. It's going to be about the people who follow God. And the angels and the beast and all this, it's a description of why we have and it could go back all the way to Genesis when Satan fell or when the fall of man. Remember, I told you God's plan is a plan of restoration. The gospel is part of that plan of restoration. His basically what happened to Jesus happened at the right time where people can literally spread the gospel over the whole known world to them because they were under one rule of Roman Empire. So whatever people say, oh, the Roman Empire was bad, it was conquering, God still uses that, okay, to use that right time to be able to spread the gospel of Jesus and have a restoration process for people to go back to God. They have that choice. So the second angel comes and proclaims judgment on the wicked, those who do not follow Jesus at all. But a third angel comes and warns those who compromise and then worship the beast. So uh, the whole Revelations 13 to 14, it's too bad we can't read Revelation 15, which talks about, um, which will actually, I'll talk more of Revelations 14, 15, and 16 next time. I might be able to manage something this Saturday, um, if I can. If not, it's going to be the week after. But we will talk in length of the 14, 15, and 16 of what judgment would be like at this time. So again, when people feel intimidated with the book of Revelation, um, in in some ways it's right for people to be intimidated because there is talk of judgment, but really it's a book of encouragement and a book of warning. And the book of warning is actually an encouragement for a lot of people that talks about, hey, you made the right choice. Um, People out there might be thriving more than you do, but you have earned the favor of God. So that's something that I believe people need to understand, that when they feel like their life is not going to where it's supposed to go, this book or this phrase in Revelations 14 say, hey, no matter how chaotic the world becomes, you know who you are, you know your identity is with Christ. Therefore, it's more like God telling you, well done, good and faithful servant, because you overcome all this that has gone before you. Right? So we'll end it there. Uh, so I wanted to really just focus on these two chapters because I didn't want to drown out what later on what 15 and 16 is going to be about. But I really wanted to focus on this, that there is a war that's happening, that's going to happen. But as I said before, um, we are not going to win the war because God is on our side. We're going to win it because we are on God's side, right? So there's two different things, right? We have to make a decision. It's a deciding loyalty to be one with God, right? It's something that we decide on. All right, so we'll end it there. We can have some discussion.